fascinating Wednesday night game here. Bayern Munich versus Manchester United. Harry Kane against the team he potentially could have joined last summer. Bayern 1.56, United 6.2, draw 5.0. Both teams score yes, similar to what you'd get in a Premier League game, around 1.61 and getting shorter as well. The Asian handicap line sees United get 1.25 goal head start at 185, and the goal line is 3.5, shade towards the under. Miguel, you haven't really had a chance to speak on the podcast on Manchester United this season, and I think general consensus on Erik ten Hag in season 1 was a successful season given all the off the field stuff. A lot more off the field stuff this season, but on the pitch there seems to start games well and then peter out. Like, I guess they've been competitive in all 5 games, but also they could have easily lost all 5 games, so it's tough to see where they're sort of going this season at the moment.
I think the biggest concern, and there's obviously a lot of context here, and it does feel like, say, going right up to the very top of the club in terms of the confusion over the ownership situation is now informing what's happening in the pitch. There's obviously be all manner of other issues, some of them far more serious than the football itself, but they will, of course, kind of add to everything. But from that purely football perspective, I do think that's all of this, and particularly the context of the ownership, is creating an uncertainty that has fed onto the pitch. But even beyond that, I think there are purely football concerns, and I think one of the biggest is I can't really remember too many convincing United performances since the League Cup final, and even that was almost, as regards how that game went, it was almost a bit of a sign of things to come. That suddenly it's not like they exactly dominated Newcastle in that game. It was a game on the break, and it's just remarkable how they haven't kicked on at all. Ten Hag is over a year into the job. You would have thought it was getting closer to his ideal that he had at Ajax, but instead it feels like we're moving further away. And then okay, again, there are caveats with all the injuries they've got, but I'm just beginning to have a bit of because what happens when you get to this point with a team? This is the danger point in terms of, and I suppose Adrian will be able to know this from his own career, when these doubts come in, and it could be potentially fatal to the connection the manager has with the players, which up to now has been strong, and especially when he has it like separate to some of the other more serious stories, say the Sancho situation and how that can affect the dynamic in the dressing room, especially when he now has to he's got a player who he clearly would rather sell for the next 3 months. So yeah, I mean, Ten Hag played it down the other day after the game. He said it's from a unique set of circumstances. They will improve. He needs it to improve. But going into this, I suppose in this specific game, it is set up for what could be another chastening night. I mean, the team isn't really working well at the moment. It's funny, actually, just before I came on, I was messaging someone I know who's connected to the club they weren't being 100% serious, but they're making a joke about the Onana situation. Now, it's almost the reverse of what they had with De Gea. With De Gea, they had a keeper great with his hands, but terrible with his feet. With Onana, they got a keeper great with his feet, but terrible with his hands. That's obviously harsh, given Onana as I know it wasn't fully serious, but even from that perspective, 2 of the goals I felt that Onana let in on Saturday, 2 of them were pretty close to it. I felt he should have saved them, really. Again, we know Onana's a better goalkeeper than that. And it's possible just the adaptation and the wider situation is affecting maybe how assured he is. But, I mean, you can see this being a 3-0 Bayern Munich, I'd say, which is why I've gone for Bayern Munich and over 2.5.
Okay, Bayern over 2.5, even money currently. And Adrian, that's your selection. Yeah. And look, just on what Miguel said, I guess, now I think the stat is something like he's faced 9 shots on target, 7 goals, something in and around that. He is a quality goalkeeper. We saw that last season, and I think he will come good. But right now, it's just not happening for him in terms of shot stopping, and that's kind of feeding to the players a little bit as well. It's not helping him.
Yeah, no, he's not had a good start. But I would look at the structure of the side ahead of the goalkeeper and say that's where the problems lie. The midfield, I know they've got Amrabat now, but he's not fit. But the midfield of Casemiro with Eriksen and Bruno, it's not working. They're too easy to slice through. The fullbacks, I know he's got injuries there, but they're getting absolutely annihilated most weeks. And the way Brighton carved them open, as we kind of predicted they would on the podcast, that was worrying. And you think, well, what can Bayern do to them inside the Allianz Arena? So, yeah, look, 10 goals conceded for United in their last 4 games, multiple goals in all of them. They're a poor team at the moment, and I think that it feels like they're lambs to the slaughter going to Germany for this one. Obviously, Bayern have got just a ridiculous record at home in the Champions League. 8 wins, 2 draws, no defeats in their last 10, but haven't defended very well, have they, at home in recent times? I think 9 conceded in their last 4 home games in all comps, which includes that Leipzig kind of Super Cup final. But so they're letting in a lot of goals at the moment, Bayern, but you always feel they've got plenty of goals in them, and I can see them slicing Manchester United apart at the moment. And yeah, for me, the players and the manager don't look fully connected. Not in the way that Pep and City's are, and Arteta at Arsenal, and De Zerbi and Brighton. For me, something's not quite right. And the Sancho thing, in my opinion, was just a mistake from Ten Hag, like where he said too much when he didn't have to. He's emotional because he lost the game. It's almost like he's lashed out. He said, I don't think he planned that, and now he's got to deal with the consequences of it. So yeah, you can't afford too many more mistakes, because if that dressing room goes, and it has gone before for managers, then he'll be gone. No doubt about that. So yeah, I think Bayern to win this. Same pick for me. Bayern at over 2.5.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because watching the clip, it wasn't as bad as maybe it was made out in terms of the quote. So it's sort of like he said it, and then once Sancho responded, it's sort of added fuel to the fire. Now he's maybe got nowhere to go for sure. Mark, you're on similar lines with Bayern and over 1.5 goals. Are you worried at all with Bayern at the start of the season? I know we've talked about it a lot already on this episode, but that 2-2 draw at the weekend, Bayern Leverkusen seemed like they might give them some sort of a title race in Germany this season.
No, not massively worried about them. I think they're a team who will improve again as the season goes on, and I thought they were very, very good for large parts of that Leverkusen game, especially the first 20-25 minutes, where they looked like the Bayern of old, really impressive on the ball, very high pressing outside of possession too, and they really had Leverkusen on the back foot. But I think the draw was probably merited in that match overall. They still have their weaknesses, of course they do, defensively, and Lima played right back against Leverkusen. That could be an area for United to try and exploit with Rashford's pace on the counter-attack. So absolutely, I think United can play their part in this match, but ultimately I want to side with the team who have won 31 of their last 34 unbeaten home group stage games in the Champions League, which is a quite outrageous record, really. A Bayern team who've gone 6 from 6 in the group stage in 3 of the last 4 seasons, including last year where they had Barcelona and Inter in their group. They scored twice in all of their 6 victories last season at the group stage. PSG were also beaten here. Man City were held to a draw, and Bayern played some very decent football that day. Atletico, Chelsea, Spurs have all lost quite heavily in Munich in recent seasons. So, yeah, I expect Bayern to win this game. I expect them to score 2 goals or more too, because one of the sort of favourite sort of stats or kind of narratives Adrian and I like to bring up when Man United are away in a big game is their record against teams who finished 9th and above last season in the Premier League. They've played 2 of those teams this season, and 8 of those matches last season. They've lost all of them bar 1, which they drew, and they've conceded 2 goals or more in all of them. So you kind of just marry it together, and I think Bayern Munich to win and over 1.5 goals is the most obvious bet for me on the coupon this midweek. It's 174. Just really appeals. I don't need United to contribute then. I just need Bayern to score twice or more, which they almost seem to do in their sleep whenever they play in Munich. So, yeah, quite keen to support Bayern this midweek.
Yeah, Mark might have given away his best bet there. Well, I'm going to lock in Bayern and over 2.5 goals, just over even money then, with Adrian and Miguel as the majority bet